So we have 15 books in total, and we are going to start strong with Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is a summer beach house book, which is like the go-to for any summer read, is that it's a beach house book. Since the last summer though, Wynne and Harriet have broken up and they need to pretend that they're still together because they don't want to ruin the rest of their friend group's summer. Her writing is so mature and I find like so many of her characters so relatable, and I've talked to people about her writing before. This is how I feel about Taylor Jenkins Reid as well. It's like people being like, she's written about too many different kinds of people for them to all be like straight from herself and like how she feels and what she's experienced. But the way that she writes it, it just sounds so like personal, and like every single thing that she writes about has happened to her because she describes everything with such like accuracy. Love it. So that is why I recommend Happy Place. Next up, Malibu Rising. This, like Happy Place, is also very convoluted in its storytelling through characters. To me, character-driven stories are the best stories. If you think about it, like I know a lot of people rave about fantasy. That's kind of like the new genre, is like fantasy romantasy, and I get it. I do. My thing is, right, is that it's not the world building or your setting that makes a book, it's how your characters react. And to me, books like this, where basically it just follows four kids, right? It follows the four siblings' lives, Nina, Jay, Hud, and Kit, and how they grew up versus how they are now. Basically, these four kids had a very traumatic childhood, and you kind of see throughout how surfing has been their like escapism for so long, and like how their families like issues with drug abuse and alcoholism like all connects to who they are now. It goes back and forth between the past, their past childhood, and their current present, which is a party that they throw every single year. It's this huge party, so you kind of get to go back and forth between the sadness and the like exciting present where everything comes to a climax. And a lot of people get kind of isolated in the summer. I know I do. So being able to read about other people's lives is just so like comforting. Next up is kind of like a, it's more of a summer vibe than it is a summer setting, and that is Thousand Boy Kisses. So this book is a bit more sad, but it's kind of like a fluffy sad read. It's more of like a, there's happy stuff, but it's very bittersweet. But the characters themselves are just full of like energy and life. Like, oh my god, if you've read the book, you know how funny that was that I just said that. Um, the main girl, Poppy, is just, she's just this ball of optimism, and it's just so amazing to read. And I feel like a big thing with summer is like a lot of people like kind of waste their time, and this book is like all about like living in the present, and I think it definitely like shifted my perspective on stuff. And it's also just like a cute little corny read. It is PG, it is YA, but it is still very like deep and important, and even though the writing is very lighthearted, there's still a lot of deep topics going on that I feel like make you see things differently. I really appreciate this book for what it is, and it's also still like an easy accessible book. It's easy to read, it's easy to get into, it's pretty short too. Next we have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is such an obvious one because it's been popular for so long. It was popular in like 2021, but anyways, basically, there's not really much to say. It's a vacation book, and it's literally called The Unhoneymooners, and you can see all of the freaking tropical shit on it. Like, you already know, like, the setting is summer, the feeling is summer. The writing in this is not exactly top tier, but it's so entertaining that I don't care. It won't make you think a lot. It's not trying to take itself too seriously. It's just fun, and yeah. So I appreciate this book for what it is, because nothing annoys me more than when a book tries to be deep but its story isn't built for it. A book similar to this that's like the sequel to The Unhoneymooners, but it's like a different couple, is The Honeymoon Crashers, which actually does have to do with The Unhoneymooners. It's the people from The Unhoneymooners wedding, and The Honeymoon Crashers is their best man and maid of honor, and they're supposed to help plan this wedding, right? And it's like this awesome dynamic of like control freak versus like laid back person, and their banter is just really great. And it's such like a weird, odd like turn of events that keep happening throughout the book that just like make it feel so like whimsical and like summery and magical. And it is of course in a tropical setting still, so you kind of get that summer vibe still. And the main guy in it is a surfer boy, so kind of get that reinforced too. It's also pretty short. The Unhoneymooners, it's probably like 2/3 the size of the Unhoneymooners. Like, it's a pretty small book. The Unhoneymooners isn't even that big of a book either. I highly recommend that book. If anything, I recommend it more than the Unhoneymooners. I just found the characters a lot more interesting and like a lot cuter. Next is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This is another book where I'm actually not sure if it takes place in the summer, but it feels like a summer read just because it's like small town vibe. And basically this famous singer, she's just like, she's had enough, she's tired, she's burnt out, so she goes to Rome, Kentucky. She wanted to go to regular Rome because she was trying to have her little Audrey Hepburn moment, but she couldn't, so Rome, Kentucky was the closest place she could find, I guess. So she goes there, and then her car ends up breaking down in front of the grumpiest man in the town's house. So she has to stay with him until her truck gets fixed. And you can kind of see how, like, she seems like a very open person and he seems like a very closed off person, but then you kind of get to see how both of them are kind of closed off people and they both open up over time. He's very much like a Luke Danes vibe, but it does feel more like a summary just because of like their banter and the whimsy behind everything. And they're making pies, for God's sake. I remember I read this and I was like weirded out that she was going to some random man's house. I was like, whoa girl, careful there. Like, I was anxious for her, and then I was like, it's a Sarah Adams book, what am I worried about? Next is the most obvious recommendation I will ever give ever, and that is The Summer I Turned Pretty. I'm not gonna explain it a lot because it's literally the most like cliche summer book I could ever mention ever. But just know it's about this girl named Belly, and she's been ugly her whole life, and then she finally glows up before summer, and every single summer she goes to her mom's friend's house, beach house, and in Cousins, and two brothers, Conrad and Jeremiah. Now that she's pretty, they're both kind of like, wait a minute, maybe I like you, even though they've seen her literally every single summer and have never had a crush on her somehow. This book series is so messy. If you've never read it, just watch out, because it's messy. Like, the first time I kind of appreciated that. The second time through, it irritated me like no other, just because I was like, this doesn't even feel like messy in the way that like the plot is messy, the characters are messy. Like, it feels messy in the way that like I don't want to read this because the first book and the second book had such a crazy like disconnect to each other. Like, they felt like two completely different books to me, which they are two completely different books, but you know what I mean. Like, the vibe wasn't the same, the people weren't the same, like something about the characters felt really different between each book. It's popular for a reason and I really enjoy it still. It's just like messy as hell, but I do still really enjoy this book, and it's so like atmospheric. As much as I have a love-hate relationship with this book, overall I recommend it. Then we have Beach Read. There's not really much to say about this one. It's literally every single person ever's comfort read. So, Beach Read. It's another Emily Henry book, so you know it's gonna be good. It's basically, they're both authors, and he writes really like gory, depressing, like amazing literature books, and she writes like cutesy little romances. So she is like, oh, what if you try to write a romance? And she is supposed to try and write a like the next American novel. What is that what they said on the back? Yes, the next American novel. She's supposed to write a super deep book and he's gonna try and write a romance. And so in order to give him inspiration, she decides that she is just gonna take him on little dates. They're gonna do little romantic things so that he can learn how to write a book. And wacky antics ensue. Someone just fell down the stairs in my house. This next recommendation is kind of like on par with Malibu Rising, and that is like, it's kind of like a sequel, but it's kind of like a knockoff if you think about it. So it is Carrie Soto is back, which Carrie Soto is a character that was introduced in Malibu Rising, but she didn't have a super big role. However, when she was there, she had a presence like Carrie Soto is everything I want to be. So when I found out she had her own book, I was like, oh, you know I'm reading that shit. I highly recommend this if you love challengers. Then read Carrie Soto is back because you will eat up Carrie Soto as a character. If you loved Zendaya's character in Challengers, you will eat up Carrie Soto as a character. She is like literally so amazing, and it's another like character study thing, which oof, it's just so good. So next recommendation is A Good Girl Complex. So this is a lot like Outer Banks if you think about it. It like almost perfectly mirrors Outer Banks in my opinion. You got your John B character, aka Cooper, in this book, who is like Pogue. He's from the rough side of the island. He's got edge, and he's in this family business type thing, and you know what I'm saying. And then we have Sarah and or Mackenzie in the book, who is a richy rich girl, and she's got a shitty ass boyfriend, and she slowly falls in love with John B. But in this scenario, decided to get with her just to make her embarrassed and embarrass her boyfriend, because in this scenario, Topper is cheating on Sarah and gropes a girl at a bar, and then Cooper, John B, goes to intervene, and then Topper gets John B fired, and then John B is like, yo, what if I get with his girl? Basically, literally, it's that. That is the concept. Like, down to the people in the friend group, it is Outer Banks. Which, now I'm actually curious if The Good Girl Complex or Outer Banks came out first. I'm betting Outer Banks came out first. Even better though is the sequel to that, which is like a sequel, but it's like a different couple. I don't know what they call that. There needs to be a name for that. There's probably a name for that. What's the name for that? Anyways, so it's off a different couple. It's called Bad Girl Reputation, which is about Cooper's brother, like twin brothers, named Ivan. It's Evan or Ivan. I think it's Evan. His like girlfriend, but she wasn't really there for like a year and that sort of thing. And it's like a second chance romance, but they're petty, which I really appreciate, because tell me why in every second chance romance it's always like the two people are like, it was all my fault and I wish we never broke up, but we have problems so we can't do it. No, but like they love each other so much, so they're all being petty and doing stupid shit, and I really appreciated it. This one is like, there's more stakes going on, because Good Girl Complex is more like, the only stakes was like the inter friend group of like, Cooper's friends know that he's playing Mackenzie, but Mackenzie doesn't know, but she's hanging out with their friend group, so it's like, that's nerve-wracking. But in Bad Girl Reputation, there's like outer forces that are impacting it too, like the cops, which is just so much better in my opinion. Next, we have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. A rich ass guy, right? He's famous, he needs a bodyguard, but he doesn't want a super buff bodyguard because he doesn't want to worry his family, so he hires a woman. Just a lot of goofy shit that goes down, because, well, if you want to add another complicated thing, she's supposed to always have her eyes on him all the time, right? And then he has a twin, and then he's a really good actor, so then something happens with that, because then he's like pretending something, and I don't know, somebody almost gets murdered or something. Which, like, it's so unrealistic, but it's so fun to read. Like, and I don't come here for the realism, okay? I come here to be entertained, so I don't even care that it's unrealistic, okay? And this Catherine Center book had a moment like that. And next we have The Spanish Love Deception. So I was talking about books that, like, their writing isn't made to be deep, and this is one of those books. And I really appreciate The Spanish Love Deception for what it is, because it doesn't try to be more. Basically, the entire plot of this book is the trope, and that trope is fake dating. It said, you know what, I'm here to be fun and silly, and I really appreciated that. I didn't love the characters. I actually did like Catalina, but she was kind of like, oh, she gave me a lot of embarrassment. She embarrassed me a lot. Erin Blackford Is that his name? I think that was his name. He was kind of funky to me. I didn't really get what his deal was half the time. Like, it has a summer vibe because it's like they're at this wedding site, right? And it's just like this fun, like little, like, there's a bunch of different things like happen, like the dancing part, and it's just really cute. He's like hanging out with her family and he's getting to know her family because their family thinks she's dating him, and there's like jealousy going on because like her ex is there, and it's like tensions are high and it's so silly and fun. Sometimes I reread that book when I'm in a book slump just to feel something, because like I cannot, when I'm in a book slump, I cannot be reading all of these like plot heavy, like so much story continuity type books. Like I need me a series of Spanish Love Deception. I have tried reading other books by Elena Armas. I couldn't get through any of them, but I loved the Spanish Love Deception, which, okay, I'm not even trying to be mean. I didn't. The freaking like football one, the kids just annoyed me, so I couldn't read it. Yeah, that was the long game one. The long game one, I started reading and I couldn't keep reading it because the kids were so annoying, and I felt so bad about it because I was like, no way, I'm DNFing this book because the kids are annoying. Next is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. Another great example of someone who is really good at incorporating both serious stuff and fun stuff. She's a little heavier on the fun stuff. Like if you say like Emily Henry is a little heavier on the sad stuff. And then Lynn Painter is like a little heavier on the light stuff. And then like she gets into the deep stuff later. And I really love how she develops characters. And basically this is sort of like the element of like a Groundhog Day type thing, which this does take place during the school year, but it feels kind of like a summer vibe because she's reliving the same day every day, right? And so she decides like, what if I just do a day where I do whatever I want? And so she gets this other boy to do it with her, and it kind of feels like John Green's Paper Towns. You know, they do that scene where that whole night where she like goes around and just does whatever she wants. She takes him up to that big city tower thing.
Come here.
It just kind of felt like that, just like two kids like breaking all the rules. It was very much like a coming of age story, and both of the characters just like had my whole heart and soul, and they were just both such amazing people, and I just loved reading their banter and their conversations and just like how freaking romantic it was, even though they were just doing like simple kid shit. And I feel like that's just so great to like have be a message in a book of like, you don't have to be doing something amazing every single time you hang out with somebody. You can just enjoy your time doing simple things. Like they did some silly little things, and it was like they were like, oh, let's do this like day where we just go crazy. But some of the stuff they did was still just like so simple and cute. It was just a fun little like adventure book. Next book is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. So I've read two of Hannah Grace's books now, and neither of them really do it for me. I just don't really enjoy them that much, but I still like them. It's just I didn't go crazy over Icebreaker like other people did. I kind of thought there was going to be more to it than the obvious, but I still enjoyed it. I still liked it, and I liked Wildfire more than Icebreaker for sure. So the setting is two camp counselors, right? A few months before, they had a little interaction, and since then they've not talked to each other. So when they come back, there's a bit of like awkward tension going on, and they have to figure out how to be at this summer camp for 3 months together without doing anything, which is a lot of fun. And the stakes are pretty high, and I'm not gonna lie, it made me kind of uncomfortable when they were doing weird stuff at the camp, and I was like, what the flip, there's literally children here. But other than that, it was a good book. I liked it. Both of the characters were actually pretty bearable. Usually I cannot stand Hannah Grace's characters. Like, Nathaniel in Icebreaker was such a little sweetheart, and Anastasia was an a-hole. So if you like you a little simple summer book, if you want a summer camp book, because I was definitely looking for a summer camp book, because I was like, I have read enough beach house books to last a lifetime. I need me a summer camp book. So I appreciated this book simply because of the setting. That wraps up my 16-15 summer reads for 2024. I hope you found a book that you liked, and if you already read all of these, I am sorry for wasting your time. I hope you have a good day, and I hope you find a book that you like. All right, Bye.